Thank you for that introduction, and good morning, everybody, and salam alaikum. It is fantastic to be here once again at the World Blockchain Summit. Thank you so much for the organizers. Thank you so much for the sponsors. It's the first panel of the day, so very mixed emotions. First panel always has the most amount of energy, but the topic is regulation. That often doesn't come with the most amount of energy. So we are going to make this as exciting and as informative as we can. And I can't think of three more fantastic gentlemen to do that with on this stage. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cal Evans. I'm the Managing Associate at Gresham International, international lawyer, author, speaker. For those of you who do know me, please keep quiet. I'd like to work my way down the line, give the gentlemen each an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their background, and then I'll start firing some, hopefully not too difficult questions off at them. Alex, maybe if we begin with you and work our way down.
Thank you for having me, and welcome everyone. So I look after the Dubai entity of Binance. So Binance, as most people probably aware, is the largest crypto exchange in the world by volume, staff and coverage. So we tackle regulation in many jurisdictions. I concentrate in the Middle East. And I've been in traditional finance for about 20 years and crypto since 2016.
Hey everyone, I'm Bill. Actually, I'm ex-colleague with Alex, and yeah, so far I'm managing the Cypher Capital and the chairman, and also under our umbrella we have Phoenix Mining. That is a global largest Bitcoin miner with 7% hash rate, and we will go to the IPO in Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange in November. So I'm also taking a seat of managing director in Phoenix Group. And apart from that, we are running the regulated crypto exchange, M2.com, fully licensed in NDGM, and we'll launch very soon by end of November. Yeah, and before Cypher and Phoenix, I was global head of M&A for Binance, and I manage all the Binance global fundraising, Binance Labs, and Binance merger and acquisition. Before Binance, I was very typical Web2 background. I managed the global tech investments for one of the largest e-commerce platform, JD.com, in Beijing. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mohammad Albalooshi. I head the DIFC Innovation Hub. DIFC stands for Dubai International Financial Center. Innovation Hub, DIFC Innovation Hub is an entity it's a government entity that is responsible for developing the fintech sector for the city of Dubai. So the Fintech Hive, or the DIFC Innovation Hub in particular, actually is an ecosystem that has more than 800 plus fintech companies. So it's a physical ecosystem with all its components, be it accelerator programs, venture building. We also look at sector development and pushing regulation. I'm not the regulator myself, but I do speak to regulators quite often, even our own regulator, to kind of represent the interests of our fintech companies. We do also look after things like the Dubai Fintech Summit. More recently, the Dubai AI Campus is also something that we aim to develop for the city of Dubai, and under which now we aim to build and create a platform that would particularly focus on AI and Web3 in particular. I think the city needed a platform that focuses on these sectors in a much more focused way. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. We've all been working in the blockchain Web3 space for some time, and we've certainly seen its evolution. One of the things that Charles was just talking about is some of the international challenges that we see within this industry. And I always like to begin these particular panels by asking people what you feel is the current biggest challenge to the blockchain Web3 space from a regulatory perspective right now. And I always want to stress, chaps, there's never a right or wrong answer to this question. So be as brutally honest as you feel like you'd like to. Mohammed, maybe we begin with you and we'll work our way down.
Sure. So I think, again, I need to be wary of what I say. I'm usually very critical of the regulators, but I think regulators have been trying to play their part, specifically in this part of the world, but still a lot of work needs to be done. I think there's still a lot of unknowns, if I may say. I think when you are to plug the Web3 space into the conventional infrastructure. For example, I mean, crypto players kind of being able to tap into the banking infrastructure, being able to open up bank accounts. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done over there. A lot of exchanges do struggle when it comes to opening up bank accounts. And I think that's the area, that's an area that a lot of work needs to be done. And also, I think I've always said it, I think the know-how also is not there, not from a crypto perspective, I think from a regulatory perspective. Because how many regulators do we know globally that are experts in crypto regulation? I think if you look at all the regulators, how many are there? So I think there's a knowledge development gap as well on the regulatory side in particular.
Absolutely. Bill?
Yeah, I think the education and knowledge down road from the industry know-how would be the biggest challenge for the global regulators. Yeah, and also I guess this is also part of the reason why SEC think everything is a security in the end. Especially when we come to the Web3, a lot of stuff, especially from user experience perspective, it's anti-intuition. It's like totally different from Web2. It's not like when Web2 get evolved from PC internet to mobile internet, like everything is like common sense and very intuitive. In Web3, like you need to understand like what is a seed phrase and how people move the money and why there are so many chains on the internet, etc. So I guess like it takes some time for all the global regulators to download the knowledge and then learn how to deal with the users and to provide a constructive regulation methodology and protocols to the market.
Yeah, so I'll just echo the sentiment. It's the knowledge gap. It's these are new products that are very innovative. And has some aspects that are the same as traditional finance, but some are distinct, right? Peer-to-peer transactions is distinct, and this is something that regulators need to get their head around. As it's a new industry, most of the people are innovating rather than regulating. They're the ones building. So there's a bit of a lag of people moving across to the regulatory side. And I guess we just have to get the, in the region here, there's a decided push from the leadership to establish regulatory frameworks in all the major financial centers. Yeah, we'll just have to upskill them.
Absolutely. So we've briefly spoken about some of the perhaps negative things. What are some of the challenges? Let's flip it onto some good things. We're all here in the UAE and in Dubai. And giving an example, leading by example, one of the most fantastic things that I see as a lawyer, and I see selfishly in my industry, is the court within the DIFC. It's a fantastic jurisdiction. It's great at what it does. But what are your reasons for being based here? And what are some of the things that you're seeing that Dubai and the UAE is really leading the way in? Alex, I'll kick off with you.
Yeah, so Dubai has given us a fantastic opportunity. They've given us VARA, which is a virtual asset specific regulator. They've shown that senior leadership are embracing Web3. They see the scope of growth and for GDP. And for us as a large business, we really need that predictability. We need that surety that we can build here for the future. We have an extremely large workforce here, about 10% of Binance employees live in Dubai. And so with that surety, we're building for the future. And I think we're all aligned. We want to grow the economy here. We want to grow the Web3 economy here. And we want it to be a safe environment for everyone.
Yeah. So before I came to Dubai by end of 2021 as one of the Binance employees who moved outside of China. Yeah, I think the key thing realistically is very important for us. It's like Dubai is especially this region is such a friendly place. Being friend, but also like with a very sophisticated regulation. Yeah, so that's one of the key reasons I moved outside of China and come to this region. Yeah, and but yeah, unfortunately now like in Asia, even mainland China still ban the crypto, but the offshore part, which is Hong Kong, is catching up and being more friendly and constructive to the crypto environment. Yeah, but I still see there's very strong inflow trend, not only from the Asia founders, but also Indian founders, CIS, Russian speaker founders. When we talk about the level of the diversification perspective, I definitely think Dubai and the UAE region is the most diversified crypto hub, way more diversified than Singapore or Silicon Valley, etc.
Probably my 2 cents on that is, again, I think it's a top-down approach, and that helps. I think that pushes everyone rather than us. I think kind of pushing things from bottom up might be a bit difficult in certain cases, but I think over here it's very clear the leadership is keen on the sector and kind of positioning Dubai as a hub for this sector. But I think it's more than that. Apart from just regulations, I think Dubai offers everything. Dubai is very attractive when it comes to attracting talent. Be it Binance or be it M2. I think if you are to attract talent, Dubai is a place where you can convince the best talent in the world to move to. And I think the policies are very attractive when it comes to attracting talent. And the quality of life, of course, does play in Dubai's advantage. And so I think it's the composition of everything coming together, and then kind of the push towards becoming a hub for Web3 and the crypto industry. I think that just makes it complete. With that being said, I always say, and I say this to myself before I say it to anybody else, there's a lot more that we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you are doing within your respective organizations to future-proof. Alex, you mentioned something very astute earlier, and that was the concept of future-proofing, looking forward. And none of us have a crystal ball, so we're not sure what the future holds, but we're all hoping for an uptrend in the market, obviously. What are you gentlemen doing within your organizations to future-proof, to prepare for future regulations, future problems, and what are the steps that you're taking to kind of make sure that the avenues that you take are regulated and operational?
So we're working with the regulators on a daily basis. So those discussions are happening as we're seeing the tools that we use, the technology, the protocols develop. We're in dialogue constantly with regulators here and globally. So it's important to keep that dialogue open and sort of make sure everyone can see how the new technology affects the old technology and where it sits with regulations. Things like account abstraction in wallets. And I think that's what's key for us at the moment is, as a centralized exchange, we try to reduce the sophistication for market participants to interact and custody their crypto assets, their virtual assets. And we're seeing the progression of that, which will lead to people being self-custodians or independent custodians. But that's a long journey, and that's where we're going towards.
Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I think under our umbrella, we are dealing with the regulators and to build up the constructive channel of the communication in different perspectives. Like Cypher Capital, we are applying for the asset management license. M2 is ADGM licensed, and also Phoenix is a minor, etc. Yeah, so along the way, we do feel like to have the conversation and to discuss with the regulator is very, very important because this industry is growing so fast, and even for us, we need to learn every single day from the industry, and definitely I think it's very important for us to to keep updated with the regulator, and on top of that, in a mutual way, we can come up with some proper policy for the industry players going forward.
Yeah, I think from our side, again, future-proofing anything is making sure that you constantly innovate. And the DIFC recently announced legal framework outlook for digital assets, because up until recently, there's no law, not just the regulation as digital assets, what's classified, what's not in the jurisdiction wasn't there. So I think that is being put there, but also I think we need, I mean, just to make sure that we're innovative at all times and we're open and progressive. We've had a sandbox, but we recently announced a regulatory living lab as well. It sounds a bit fancy, but the idea is that how do you kind of create an environment where you have players that want to look into the future and test new concepts. And what I mean by that, let's say if we have a bank and they want to test how, let's say they can build their digital assets capability, so that could be tested in that environment, and we actually have something public as well. Whatever's public, I can mention it. So with Standard Chartered, we're building their digital assets capability out of the DIFC, leveraging our regulatory living lab. But there could be many other cases. And I think also to future-proof these things, I think the Dubai AI Web3 campus is also another example why we build a campus for Web3 and for AI and for Web3. It's because we want everyone in the industry, the users and the producers, to come together and to test and to see what works or what doesn't. Also pull in the regulators at the right time to see, again, and to get their guidance, get their feedback. You also always have people, winners and losers, not losers, people that probably, things that might not work. But I think it's that environments or those test beds that actually enable development or future-proofing of any sector.
Absolutely. I noticed none of you said use a lawyer to future-proof yourself. So being the only lawyer on stage, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in and just say make sure you work with the right counsel, you involve yourselves with the right regulators. So one of the things I think that we have all struggled with within this industry is trying to walk the fine line between compliance and achieving business operational goals. Because I think all of us, if we said hand on heart, we would love a solid regulatory framework that gives us guidelines as to how businesses can operate. But there comes a cost analysis benefit. Sometimes this isn't always the cheapest opportunity. And one of the questions that we get a lot, especially from startup founders, so for those of you who are founders and startups, pay attention to this one. What would you give as the one biggest piece of advice for people that are starting up in this industry, maybe specifically aligned with what you're doing or where you're based? And what advice would you give them about striking that balance between meeting a regulatory requirement and meeting that business need? Because we know they are 2 sides of the same coin. Bill, maybe you could lead us with this one.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin established back to 2009, and Ethereum, I think it's 2014. Yeah, so if all the entrepreneurs and founders, they want to be 100% compliant, basically they cannot do anything. The reason is because the law and the policy is so immature. It's the gold rush or the Silicon Valley, back to 1950. Yeah, so I think in the end of the day, being compliant and also being ethical would be also both are very important, because there are not many law or compliance you can apply to, but at least the founders should be understand the common sense, don't move the user's money, right? To behave ethical. This is very important. For those kind of things, we don't need the regulator to tell you to do so. Those kind of things should be the common sense. Yeah. And my advice to all the the new founders or new players to the industry would be learn all the established policy, etc., but also be very nimble and flexible to the industry innovation. Yeah, so it's difficult, but in the end of the day, it's sort of balance between left and right.
Sure. Absolutely. Mohammed?
Yeah, I would probably, because I kind of sit at the crossroads of regulation and fintechs, and I think this is one of the challenges that we faced. I think people that are, let's say, disrupting financial services, we see a lot of them that come and have, very good technology, but probably ignoring the regulatory and compliance elements. And that's where we have to educate these people that the financial services industry is a highly regulated space, and it always has been, and it always will be, because you're actually dealing with third-party money. There's a lot of risk, unlike any other industry. So just having that awareness that the risk factor is high, you need to make sure you have the right measures in place, understanding what it means to be to provide financial services. Because you're not operating an e-commerce platform, you're providing financial services. So kind of understanding that and making sure you leverage technology as well, because again, coming back to your point, the cost of compliance is just going through the roof. That's why a lot of smaller companies can't meet the requirements of the regulators. And that's why you also have some of the larger institutions that are not interested in smaller businesses because of the cost of compliance. So I think technology we have to look at innovative solutions. So anyone that is out there that has solutions, I think the market's hungry, the market's looking for solutions. Regulators and I think tech players are looking for solutions that could meet their requirements and that could satisfy the regulators.
Yeah. Alex?
So I think the advice would be head to a jurisdiction like this, where there is more certainty about what is regulated and what is not, and then start from that point. Well, we understand what needs to be regulated, as Mohammed was just saying. There is a gap for people to innovate in these regulatory tools, and then you can then syndicate out that tool to all the other sort of financial services, cryptocurrency enterprises. All the VASPs here need that. So that's where I would key in. I think there, as I say, here there is enough certainty. 5, 6 years ago, globally, maybe there wasn't, but here there is. So, there's no longer the excuse that you didn't understand it was regulated. It definitely is. It's definitely touching on financial services. And with those permissions, and whenever you're using third-party payments or third-party money, you need to have that governance.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I would just add in as well is talk to regulators. A lot of people take this us and them approach, and they forget that actually regulators will have a very open and frank conversation with you. And often those conversations cost nothing other than time. Even just getting that good 30,000-foot feel as to what the regulator is thinking about what you're doing can be a very healthy step to take, especially when you're in a startup environment. Having said that, not drawing on the us and them approach, one of the things I always love to talk about on regulatory panels is, let's pretend that some of the regulators are listening, as I'm sure they probably inevitably are. If you could communicate with them, look, this is one of the biggest things we're facing, this is what you need to change. Right here in Dubai, and potentially even the UAE if you want to look on a wider level, if you were to give them one piece of advice, or say maybe this is one thing we could do differently, what would that be? And what would that sentiment come from? Change this because of this, or help with this because of that. Because sometimes it's always good to give regulators feedback, as much as it is to talk about them. Give them some feedback and talk about things that could be changed here. Alex, I'm looking at you, I think.
Yeah, this is precisely what we do with Vara. We were open dialogue from day zero with their whole team, and they engage us whenever they want to understand the product or service, or if we want to introduce new products or services, we go and explain it to them. And although blockchain, crypto can be very complex, you need to be able to understand it in a manner that everyone can digest. And if you can't, frankly, it means you don't understand it well enough yourself. So it's about explaining what you want to do, why you do it, and especially going back to financial services, your job is to protect your consumers, and you need to explain what risks you see and how they're mitigated. And then, that's the language they understand, and then they can build from there.
Sure. Bill?
Yeah, I know quite a few crypto founders are struggling about, to set up the bank account in this region. But in the end, they can still get it. But it still consume a lot of time and efforts. So one piece of advice I would say, maybe regulators can help the banks, to set up a process to streamline the process how to help the crypto founders set up the bank account. Yeah, even I mean like in the end, if all the crypto companies they have a bank account, in another sense, it also helps the regulators to regulate the crypto company properly on the flip side.
Again, as a mediator, I want to make sure I give a balanced response. So I think from a regulator's perspective, they would also love to engage and understand the challenges that you guys are facing. And I think continuous open dialogue, I think regulators usually do come up with consultation papers. And I think going back and responding to those papers and kind of sharing your feedback, I think it's important. And again, I think from startups' perspective as well, I would probably urge the regulators to be a bit more flexible. Yeah, I think.
Excellent. One of the things that we've spoken about but we haven't addressed is moving to Dubai. And we wouldn't be doing Dubai a justice being at a conference in Dubai if we didn't explain to those who don't live here permanently or haven't at least thought about it some of the benefits of doing business, some of the benefits of living. And as people who have all lived here and of course been born and grown up here, what would you say in both a business and a personal sense, and you can put a regulatory spin on this, whether you choose to or not, is the reasons that you chose to move to and do business in Dubai? Bill, I'll start with you in the middle.
Yeah, I think Dubai is getting to a new hub of the world, not only in Web3 domain, but in in a general domain, for tech industry, for any other industry, etc. Yeah, because I originally I was from the Web2 internet industry in China, and now basically every single week we have the internet platform and technology company from Asia come to visit this region. Yeah, so I feel living in Dubai is definitely has a lot of network effects, not only as a Web3 player but even in general as a tech player, etc. Yeah. And having said that, I do feel the living cost of Dubai is still higher than the other jurisdiction. So we do see quite a few tech founders, they move their commercial team here, but they still locate their tech team and R&D team in CIS region or in other Asian country.
Sure, Alex.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic place to base yourself. Living conditions are amazing, the weather's amazing, infrastructure's great, and I think it was we were lucky to be in a place where senior leadership a long time ago decided that they needed to grow the population base, they needed to diverge away from hydrocarbons, so they built two fantastic airlines, Emirates and Etihad, and so it is the center point, it is the focal point of the region. It is the place where people come to meet. It is, then we get the network effects, by coming here, meeting new people, meeting people from all around the world. It really builds into the value proposition of Dubai. And so it's just a fantastic meeting place.
Sure. And I'm sure you're going to be passionate about this, Mohammed. But
again, I think Dubai's, I always tell people, give me another hub that offers what Dubai offers. It has everything today. And I think from an infrastructure perspective, lifestyle perspective, connectivity perspective, the weather, not probably as much during the summer, but I think it's truly a city that offers everything and it wants to offer everything. It's open to business, it's open to attracting talent, it's open to growth, and hence the policies are being shaped around it. I think the infrastructure is built around it, and I think so far probably what I didn't used to like that Dubai used to be considered a regional hub. And we even in our mandate, we would want to change that. We really want people to look at Dubai as a global hub, because you literally, I mean, you're at the center of the world, and we believe you could cover most of the world from Dubai. And I think we started seeing that, and as my colleague was mentioning, that people are now looking at Dubai as a global hub, and we've started seeing businesses kind of setting up their global HQs, or let's say co-global HQs in Dubai. I think that is something that now we're pushing for. We want to go beyond just the regional hub, where you would set up shop just to cover Middle East and North Africa. I think now we want to make sure that people look at Dubai as they would look at London, for example, or New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that, or poignant, that one of the things Charles was talking about when he began his speech, for those of you that were here, was he referenced the turning in America and how America was when it began, a nation that welcomed everybody, a nation that enabled people to work hard and succeed and thrive, and they never judged you based on who you were or where you came from. And those words could almost be echoed about Dubai.
I think that's exactly the case. I mean, if you, I always tell people, if you just go to Dubai Mall and look at the diversity of people that are out there, I think it's just mind-boggling. And I think there's only a few cities where you land and you feel at home, and I'm sure everyone would resonate. Dubai is one of those where everybody feels at home, and that's what we want to make sure we enable and we create, and yeah, as more and more it becomes a cosmopolitan and one of the, if not the international hub.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, chaps, one of the things I think we should also talk about is where the technology is going. And why we should do that is because in order to understand how regulation affects a technology set, you really have to understand where it's going. And I know that this question will be asked a lot today, so people will romanticize and talk about where they want it to go. So feel free to keep this in as much of a regulatory lane as you like. Maybe reg tech, maybe specific to the industry that you are in. Let's talk about where we see the industry going as a whole over the next 2, 3, 5 years, and what we think maybe, if you want to give your feeling on it, the regulatory challenges will be with that evolution, but focus mostly on where we see the industry going in an evolutionary sense. Alex, I'll lead with you.
Yeah, so if we're looking at Web3, no one disputes Web2, and no one's seen companies that have failed to adopt web technology. So Web3 is the key driver here, and where we're going is the product is going to become much more beautiful. No one looks at how cookies work, for example, and that's a cornerstone of how Web2 works, and identifying people. Whereas Web3, it's going to be cryptocurrencies acting as cookies. And so the Web3 industry and products are going to develop to a point where you're interacting with these products and you don't really care that it's on blockchain. You don't really care that you are either holding assets or transferring assets, but the product will stand out. So that's where we need to go, and that's what we're trying to build, these Web3 tools that don't require sophisticated use, and they give power back to people.
Sure. Bill?
Yeah, I think there are quite a few bottlenecks to, sort of like limiting the user growth of the Web3. One thing would be, the fiat on and off ramp. It's still very difficult and challenging. The second one would be like how to manage your seed phrase, etc., which is brand new to traditional internet users, and also how to manage different chain, etc. I have to say, apart from the fiat on and off ramp, the rest of the challenge are very, anti-intuition. It's sort of the killer to limit the users, between 5 billion daily active users of Web2 and only less than 5 million daily active users on the Web3. Yeah, and from my perspective, we do see, there are quite a few entrepreneurs who are working on to, to address those kind of a bottleneck in the next few years. And this is one side. And also on the other side, like, you know, the founders are working on how to create a like daily use case, a killer app for the Web3. I guess, like, you know, in our audience today, like everyone, we are the daily active user of the Web2, WhatsApp, you know, Facebook, etc. But who is, you know, the daily active user of the Web3? Even I am a weekly active user. I'm not a, you know, daily active user. Yeah, and how we can create a, let's say, you know, a daily active, you know, fintech app, or like, you know, the instant messenger app, etc. in the future, you know, with embed functions of the Web3, NFT, etc. And I think that one will really, you know, bring the whole industry to the next level.
Yeah, please, maybe.
I think from our perspective, what we're seeing is more and more conventional. The industry is not going anywhere. Yeah, things are probably a bit slow. I don't want to say that it's going to bounce back in so many months, but we all know, and I guess we're bullish on the space. But one thing that we're seeing more conventional players also wanting to enter the space. So all, let's say, the traditional financial institutions also want to see what they can do in the Web3 space, or the digital asset space. I think we'll see more and more of that, and probably with time, kind of it coming mainstream. But with time, I think if the conventional players become more active in it, then it would really be more mainstream, I would say.
Sure, absolutely. And guys, I think what would be very interesting is if you could speak a little bit about some of the things you do to keep users safe when they engage with your respective organizations. And let me lay out this question before I answer it fully. One of the things I think we have to be cognizant of in a forward-looking industry is bad actors and people that try and use the technology for bad reasons or perhaps nefarious activities. There's an old speech in a movie somewhere that talks about, you know, we get new technology, the bad guys get new technology. You know, we get this, then they get that. Perhaps you could talk about some of the things, Alex, you could talk about for users. Bill, you could talk about for people you deploy capital to. Mohammad, you could talk about people that call the DIFC home, both in business and in leisure, as to what the steps you're taking to proactively protect users and make sure that people stay safe when they're working in what we know to be quite a volatile industry and quite an ever-evolving one. Alex, I'm going to pick on you first again.
Thank you. So our primary tool is education. It's explaining to the users how they should interact with other entities. So Binance is the biggest target in the Web3 industry. So everyone wants to attack, everyone's trying to hack. So luckily for us, we have the best in the world team dealing with our security, our infrastructure and our product. But you know, going back to Web3 and users, it's really educating users to explain to them the new asset, how they should deal with it, how they should be safe, how they should protect their seed phrase, how they should look at transactions. You know, this is the same sort of education we got with websites before, you know, when you have secure websites and where you're transacting and adding your passwords. So it's the same factors there. We hope that new technologies will, again, reduce the risk to users for phishing attacks. We saw Mark Cuban, a very sophisticated web investor who had his wallet drained. If it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone. So, you know, it's all about making sure that people transact in a way that they're comfortable. And that's what brings value, as Binance is a centralized exchange. And, you know, we have users trust us with billions of dollars of their assets.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I think, my advice to the user would be like, you know, before you become very savvy about the security knowledge, try to use a well-organized, recognized, you know, centralized exchange to store your money instead of like, you know, manage your money by self-custody. go to Binance or OK or like M2 from us, etc. would be a better choice. Yeah, and if someone want to sort of self-custody their own money, I would say like better to know all the necessary knowledge, go through one by one, and avoid like to manage your seed phrase by screenshot, etc. Yeah, and I think like you can avoid like 99% of the attack.
I think from our perspective, there's a lot of risk. I think be it for DIFC as a center or Dubai overall, and specifically wearing the regulatory hat, I mean, we need to make sure whatever we've built at the DIFC or the city of Dubai as a reputation is protected. And that's why I think it becomes really challenging. How do you make sure that you're stringent enough when it comes to your regulations and your checks, but at the same time kind of allowing innovation. So I think kind of finding that fine balance between being progressive and innovative, but at the same time ensuring that the right controls and measures are in place. There will always be let's say bad apples, either in the conventional space or the Web3 space, but I think we need to be agile enough to make sure that we're innovative and progressive, but at the same time we have the right controls and measures in place for the safety of course, the reputation of Dubai and the IFC, but also the safety of the consumers.
Absolutely. Chaps, I'm going to, in the last 4 minutes, open the floor up for questions. Perhaps whoever's got the microphone could be ready to hand that to whoever's got questions. Somebody's waving. Now, while they're organizing the microphone, there's 3 rules to this. The first one is no pitching. You're not allowed to just start pitching the people on the stage. The second point is they have to be questions that are good and tangible, and the panel members have a right to veto. I've actually been warned that some of the panel members have strategic members in the audience, and they will, if it's a bad question, they'll shoot me daggers, so help me out. And we've only got 3 minutes and 20 seconds, so you have to shoot, and the chaps will give a response. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand, and one of the team members will hand you a microphone. I know this gentleman, Kevin, at the front here, has a question.
Wow, okay. Look, on regulations and compliance, I think you guys hit everything, but the question for newcomers, and I've been here for 6-7 years, but it still feels new every day. VARA is the new player in campus. ADGM before that. It was a little slower process with ADGM. It's a little faster with VARA. Any opinions with your processes with VARA specifically compared to ADGM for the people in the room looking at Dubai rather than Abu Dhabi or vice versa?
Does anybody want to handle that?
I'll do it.
Yeah, go for it.
So the difference between ADGM and VARA is ADGM regulate other financial services products. It's not their core competency. They spend a lot of time regulating. And VARA are virtual asset specific. So, that's their core competency. They spend a lot of time, effort learning about it. It's their full mandate, whereas ADGM is a traditional finance regulator. So if you're totally crypto, I would definitely side with VARA. If you're maybe moving to other financial services, go to ADGM.
I think the follow-up on that is like most people are understanding that when they come here, but online and research from behind the scenes, they're saying, okay, ADGM is the big boys table, right? And VARA is that, but it's not that at all. It's 2 separate tables doing the same thing and opposite. But I think the education, you guys mentioned knowledge, you mentioned education, and the massaging of those 2 is important. And I think you guys did a good job here today, but I think more people should research what you just said about ADGM because it's a misinterpretation of virtual assets compared to traditional finance, and I think that gets blurred, but people always feel they need the ADGM, but VARA is doing fantastic work here, and I know some of the other Emirate states are as well, so thanks for clearing that up.
And our colleagues in DIFC as well are now, equal.
Yeah, I think each jurisdiction has, their own kind of, technically you've got four regulators or 5 regulators in the country. You've got the UAE Central Bank, you've got ESCA, then you've got ADGM and VARA, they're financial free zones. ADGM and the DIFC, they're financial free zones, and you have VARA that looks at Dubai more on a local basis. So I think in terms of, I think what this indicates is the aim to push across regulators, the sector. I mean, if you look at each one of them, the DFC is pushing regulations, VARA is pushing regulations, ADGM is pushing regulations, ESCA is trying to also push. So I think as collectively, all of them are trying to push and develop the ecosystem, which I think enables the ecosystem. But again, I think it looks at, I think whoever's looking at kind of getting regulated should look at the jurisdiction and what the jurisdiction has to offer and who else is out there, and accordingly I think they should make the decision. But I think from our perspective it only makes the regulatory offering more compelling. I think there's more and there's different levels of sophistication and different expertise as well, I think niches as well.
Perfect. Thank you, chaps. That is our time. And to get some energy back in the room, because I know we've just had 45 minutes of regulation, let's give them a huge round of applause. Thank you so much.